Welcome to Rose Red Homestead, and I'm really excited about today's video. It's been a while since we have done any pasta, and we're going to continue today. And if you remember when I very first started this series on homemade pasta, I promised you that there would be something new in every single video. And since the last time, we've powdered a whole lot of vegetables. And so today we're going to be making red pasta. What do you think the item is that we are going to use to color the pasta red? So this goes very directly to food security and emergency preparedness, particularly emergency preparedness, and I will tell you why when we come back in just a moment. All right, why does this one support emergency preparedness? If the grid goes down for any period of time and society turns upside down and we don't have access to the things that we are normally used to, and we have to start living on the food that we have stored, we're going to want to have some things stored that will give us some pleasure and will be nutritious and very, very appetizing. Well, one of those things is, of course, pasta. And we can certainly store dried pasta, and we can cook up a storm of pints or quarts of meat sauce. But here is something that is just, I think, a super idea. And that is that you can use dried ingredients, including the eggs, dried eggs, to make the pasta, and that is one thing that is new. The other thing that is new is I have two of our reddish powders out here. I have beets. Now, 2 or 3 tablespoons of the beet powder would really make a nice red pasta. This is my tomato powder, and I'm running a little low on it, but I have some more tomatoes I'm going to dehydrate, and this would be more orange than red. And so I wonder if we did not use a powder, which we could, and we have a ton of choices now. We could just use any of our veggie powders that we've put away to flavor and to color this pasta. But I'm going to suggest something else. Can you guess what it is? It is something that we have done recently in one of our videos. Well, if you said sun-dried tomatoes, you are right. So here is a container of the sun-dried tomatoes that we made in the previous video. I have some already in the little dish of my food processor, and we're going to stir these up with a food processor and make them into a paste. And then we'll work that paste into our dough and have that color and provide a little bit of flavor to our pasta today. So we're going to get with it. I want this good and pasty. So here is the paste, sun-dried tomato paste. So this will be lovely flavoring. Oh, it smells so good. So let's get on with our recipe. And now, if you remember, our recipe is 300 grams of flour. So that's going to go in first, and we just mix it right in the food processor. 300 grams of flour. And 2 teaspoons of this kosher salt, diamond crystal salt, and if you're going to use regular salt, then you're going to use only 1 teaspoon. This is all fluffied up, as I've said before. And then right here with the dry ingredients, we are also going to add our egg powder. Now, I reconstitute our eggs 1 to 1. So I'm putting in just a little bit over a quarter of a cup of egg powder, which is the equivalent of about 2 large eggs. So I'm going to put that in there, and that's all our powder. We're going to do our liquid separate. So I'm going to now put this right in the food processor. And the next step is to add the liquid. So we need to add the egg liquid first, which is just a little more than 1/4 of a cup. And we need 185 grams of the liquid. And that includes the eggs. And although this is not super liquid, it's more pasty than liquid, I'm also going to include this. And I used about 2 tablespoons. And now I'm going to add more water till we take this up to 185. Okay, we have 185. Stir this around a little bit. Dilute the paste. So this is going to be like a brick red color pasta. And it's going to have little flecks in it from the tomato skins, obviously. Okay, now we're just going to pulse this until it forms a ball. All right, here we go. It's forming that ball. Okay, it is stiff. That's the way we want it. We don't want it too soft. And now we need to develop the gluten. Now, some of you in the comments under some of the other pasta videos have said that you don't need it at all. You just mix it up and then you run it through whatever pasta maker you have, or you cut it by hand. I've read a lot, and since our last video, I've done a lot of pasta. And I frankly prefer the gluten developed in the pasta. It just gives the pasta a nice bite and a really nice texture. And it takes about doing this, and I'm just using my fingertips and not my whole hand the way I do when I do bread. Oh, it smells so good. It smells just like sun-dried tomatoes. It's such a beautiful color. This takes about 10 minutes to really develop the gluten, and then we're going to let it sit for about a half an hour wrapped in plastic. Then we'll come back to it. So we'll come back when we're ready to do something with this dough. It has been 30 minutes and our dough is just perfect and ready now. The reason why we have it rest is so that it can, resting helps develop more gluten, and so that's what we were after. Now, the other new thing that I want to show you is I now have a pasta machine. I have a KitchenAid, and I got lots and lots of suggestions to go ahead and just buy the one that fits the KitchenAid. And I thought a lot about that and decided that if I am really going to be preparing for emergencies and to be self-reliant with our food security, then I want something that I can use if the grid goes down. So I have plenty of flour stored. I have plenty of powdered eggs that I showed you as I put those in today. And now I have a pasta machine. I have all of the ingredients to make pasta, and I have a ton of meat sauce. So we are ready to rock and roll with making homemade pasta in some kind of an emergency, and I have lots of veggie powders to to flavor that pasta with. This is the pasta machine that I decided on. It is an Atlas 150. Now this was a new purchase for me. When I'm looking to buy a new appliance or a new tool, I do a lot of research, and for instance, I go on Amazon and find what it is I want, and then I read all of the comments from people who have purchased this machine. And this Atlas 150 turned out to be really a favorite with people with very, very few complaints. And besides, it's made in Italy, so you know, what could go wrong? So it has these 4 basic parts. Here's the main machine with the rollers right here. I'm just going to use this clamp, and there's a hole on the side that it fits in, and I'm just going to clamp it to my countertop. Now I worried about the granite a little bit, but as it turns out, nothing to worry about. Then this little handle fits in this hole right here for rolling. And it's important to get it all the way in, because if you don't, it pops out. And then this is the cutter, and we'll get to the cutter in just a couple of minutes. So I want to show you how I proceed with this. And I can just tell you it's really, really nice. Much nicer than having to roll the pasta out by hand, which I could never get as thin as I wanted. Okay, I'm going to just cut this in half. Wrap this other half back up again. And then put a little bit of flour out. I use a lot of flour, and you can use the fancy pasta flour if you wish. And I've heard that it works really, really well, but I'm just using our regular all-purpose King Arthur. So I'm just going to make this into a little bit of an oblong, just pressing it out with my hands. And then with the rollers, I'm going to start on 0. So I move it to where the 0 is, and the 0 spreads the rollers as wide as they get. So I'm just going to run it through the roller at 0 setting. So look what happened there. It stretched out quite a bit. And so I put it twice through each setting. So I'm going to do it again. Some people tri-fold it this time and send it through again. I did that for a while and then I quit because I couldn't see any advantage for doing that. And so it goes through each one twice. So now I'm going to move it up to 1. And when it goes to 1, the rollers are then closer together. So here we go with 1, and of course it's going to elongate it. And so I like to not have it bunch up on the bottom, but rather I like to give it my hand to hang on, and second time through setting number 1. And I keep doing this all the way up through setting 5. Now, some people like 6, some people like 7. I happen to like 5 for the final setting. And you see the beautiful flecks of the sun-dried tomatoes in the dough. All right, this is getting pretty long, and I don't like it. I don't like to manage it when it's so long because I start stretching it. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on it, and I'm going to cut it right in half. And I just moved it up to setting 4. And here is the last setting. Twice through setting 5, and it's getting quite thin, just the way we like it. Okay, so here it is now ready to cut. And if you have reached the right consistency with your dough, it doesn't stick. If it starts to stick to itself, then just give it a little bit of flour, which is what I'm going to do right now. So we're going to run it through the cutters. And I'm going to attach the cutters. Now, this is the fettuccine cutter, and this is the spaghetti cutter. And I've tried both of them, but I by far prefer the fettuccine. Now, when we put the cutter on, we need to move the handle to up here. And each of these has its own place for the handle to go in. If we're doing fettuccine, we put it here. If we're doing spaghetti, we insert it right here. But we're doing fettuccine. Okay, now, this is the one that I have not finished. So, my fettuccine is going to be this long, and that's just fine. So I'm going to put it right up here. I kind of like it long. Put it this way. And you can see it coming out here. And so I reach under here and hold it while I finish putting it through the cutters. And isn't that just beautiful? Now I have my pan ready because I'm going to freeze these. It was so convenient. Now I just wrap it in a little knot. So I put it on the palm of my hand and wrap it and sort of twist it around until it comes back over the top. It's like fixing hair. And then I just set it right here. And then that's going to go in the freezer. Now, the other day we had our family over, and there were 8 adults, and I happened to have in the freezer 3 colors of pasta in various flavors. And so I just heated up some of the meat sauce that I've been canning with testing of the various canners, and everybody picked their own color and flavor of pasta. We fixed a green salad, and if we just didn't have the best time. Everybody had to try 2 or 3 different flavors, so it was just really a lot of fun. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll bring you back when we are all finished and everything is cut. Oh my gosh, I love making pasta. It is so much fun. Now, my actual work time on this whole project has been about a half an hour, a little bit under half an hour. With the 30-minute rest time for the pasta, it was probably a full hour to get everything all ready. Now, here is what we have. These 2 are larger portions because I did half the dough and then cut it in half. These 4, the last half, I cut it in 4, so once it got way long, I would cut it again, and so it made 4 pieces, but you can see that they're smaller. So let's talk for a minute about what we do from here. Now, if we were having guests over, or even if Jim and I were going to eat some of this for dinner tonight, what do you think, honey? Should we have some for tonight?
Sounds okay to me. It's better than chicken. Or chicken they can just add to it.
So we would just cook it raw like this. I would, in my 6-quart pot, I would boil some water. I would put a great deal of salt in, like 4 tablespoons of the crystal salt that I showed earlier. And then this cooks, bring it to a boil, and then drop this in. Now, you probably notice that there's a lot of flour on these. And the reason that that is the case is because when they're frozen, I just drop a puck right into the water, and the flour helps separate, and so it does separate into the individual fettuccine noodles, and then the flour floats to the bottom, and so the flour washes off, and you'll notice when you pour the water out of the pan that the bottom is full of that flour starchy stuff. So that's one way to do it, and it only takes 2 or 3 minutes in boiling water for this to get al dente, which is how we like it. And then the other way to do it is I can just pop these in the freezer just the way they are. I will freeze them for a couple of hours. Then I'll go back in and they'll be frozen solid, and I will put them in a plastic bag. And then those will keep in the freezer for gosh, a month, 6 weeks, even 2 months. Then the other thing to do is, if you want to make some and store your own, then instead of knotting them like this, just get a rod, even a coat hanger, and put a towel or something over it so it's not the sharp wire, or get one that's plastic that's about this diameter, and put the noodles over the hanger until they're completely dry. And then when they're dry, put them into a Mylar bag or a 2-quart tall jar, and then you can vacuum seal them or put oxygen absorber packets inside and remove the oxygen, and they'll be good for a year or more. So this is really a lovely thing to have, both stored on your shelves ready to go or in your freezer, or the raw ingredients so that you can put fresh pasta together in times of emergency, even times of emergency when your family shows up and you weren't quite expecting them. So this is really, really good. The flavor has carried through. Jim and I have both sampled it, and oh, you can really taste the sun-dried tomato there. So thank you for being with us, and we will see you. We have one more pasta video that we're going to do. The next one, I hope, if I can get a recipe to work, is pasta without eggs. So see you next time.